Welcome to the Space Marketing Podcast, where we look at marketing principles, strategies, and tactics through the lens of space. Information relating to our discussion today and links to the video version can be found on the episode show notes. You can also find them on spacemarketingpodcast.com. In order to travel among the stars, we will need to find our supplies on planets and asteroids, or as we know it, in situ. Both of my guests are planetary geologists as well as space tourists. I connected through them through the Space Tourism Conference. Dr. Kirby Runyon loves experimental space exploration and works as a NASA-funded planetary geologist. He is also a space tour guide and inspirational speaker. He coaches flyers in the weightlessness with the Zero G Corporation and takes commercial future astronauts through educational geology hikes, explaining the science behind the view that they'll have from space. In 2022, he started his own company, PlaneX, Planetary Experience Consulting. My second guest is a fellow geologist, Ken Bowdon, with Bowdon Energy Corporation. He is also dedicated to the experience of space tourism and is a future Virgin Galactic astronaut. Welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Wow, planetary geologists. That's not something you hear about every day. And that, for me, I love the whole science aspect, and it sounds so very interesting. Your focus is space exploration. Can you tell us what it is that you do?
Sure. So for half of my job, I'm a NASA-funded planetary geologist. So I use images from NASA spacecraft from around the solar system, from the moon to Mars to Pluto, which is a planet, and lots of other moons and asteroids and planets in the solar system, to look at these gorgeous alien landscapes and understand the geologic forces that over the last 4.5 billion years have sculpted these stunningly beautiful landscapes we see today. Geology is a forensic science. It's a natural forensic science. Something happened in the past, and it left clues as to what happened. And it's the job of geologists, whether you're an Earth geologist or a planetary geologist, to take those clues and reconstruct the natural history.
That is the most awesome way to put that. I never heard of that. And by the way, I am a Pluto as a planet person too.
More power to small planets.
Go Pluto.
Go Pluto. Yep.
So, Ken, can you tell us what it is that you do?
Well, I'm actually an exploration oil and gas geologist.
Okay.
But I've had a love for space and geology for a long time. My dad was a rock hound, so I grew up very early licking rocks, going out and finding rocks and licking them to see what they would look like polished. So
wow.
I have 6 tons of rock underneath my house, so that I inherited from my father. So, but I've always had an interest in space. In fact, my father bought our first black and white TV in the early '60s to watch the Gemini flights, and that's why he bought the TV, was so that we could watch the space flights. And I was 8th grade when Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, and I have been a space nut ever since. And luckily I attempted to I wanted to be an astronaut, and I'm too tall and thin to be an astronaut back in the '70s. But I've been fortunate and was able to afford to purchase a ticket from Virgin Galactic back in 2012. So I've been waiting for this experience for quite some time.
Yes, you don't have to necessarily fit the criteria anymore to be an astronaut, which is amazing. It's
the democratization of space. More people can experience it than ever before.
And you know what? That will be healthy for our space exploration. It will definitely be.
Sure will.
So, Kirby, tell me, how did you end up in? I mean, Ben, you just told us how you ended up in it, but how did you end up in this career? This isn't just something, people just jump into as a rule.
Sure. Yeah. I've been a lifelong space enthusiast, at least since I was 3 years old. My parents can attest to this. And I pursued that passion toward getting a PhD in planetary geology, working as a research scientist in planetary geology. But I'm not just technically minded. I'm also very people oriented and very experiential, very viscerally oriented. And to me, space exploration isn't just a mental, a cognitive pursuit. It's not just something you do with your brain. It's something you can actually experience with your body. I've applied twice to be a NASA astronaut, unsuccessfully, experiencing weightlessness. What's it like to float around and experience what's this lack of gravity all about that's in space? That's well, it's not technically a lack of gravity, but a lack of experiencing gravity. What does that feel like? What's the view got to be like? And so in 2022, I started my company PlaneX, Planetary Experience Consulting LLC, as a way to bring the experience of space to as many people as possible through as many ways as possible, including very tangible things. In early 2022, I was with Ken and 4 of his fellow Virgin Galactic future astronauts, people who have bought tickets to fly in space with Virgin Galactic. And we went to 2 geologic sites in New Mexico that they're going to see from space. And the idea was that they'd be able to see these wind-blown sand dunes. They'd be able to see these volcanic flows. New Mexico actually has a lot of extinct volcanoes. That they'd be able to see these geologic landforms up close, like literally see like quarter-inch size pieces of rock in the rock outcrop. And then in the future, they're going to see the exact same thing, but from space, from a completely different perspective. And as Ken and I were kind of talking before we started recording, we want to enhance the overview effect of what all space flyers are going to be able to see. If they really understand, including the geologic, the natural history of that beautiful landscape they're flying over, their overview effect is going to be that much more pronounced.
Let's unpack what you mean by the overview effect, just for our listeners.
Yeah. So overview effect, I mean, author Frank White coined this term, and it's this shift in cognitive perception that astronauts have reported experiencing as they view Earth from so high above it. And they don't see national boundaries. They see Earth in all of its natural beauty. They see this black sky that's blacker than black, and they see this incredibly colorful, thin blue atmosphere and the incredible varied texture of Earth. I'm using their words. I've never seen it myself yet. I hope to one day. But it's this shift in perception of reality, really, of seeing Earth and humanity as this interconnected, almost superorganism. And people report coming back from space just feeling changed for life.
Absolutely. Yes, Ken, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So, I've taken 2 zero-G flights because I wanted to be able to experience weightlessness. Obviously, part of the reason going to space is to do that. But you can experience that on Earth. Okay. So when I'm up there, I will be glued to the window because as a geologist, I am so interested on the morphologies of the geologic formations, of being able to understand the positioning of where we are within the and how much of that visibility we should be able to see 1,000 miles around where our position is if it's a clear day. And so I think that to me is I wanted to experience that overview effect. I wanted to experience that visualization of this Earth that I've studied for 40 some odd years, and be able to explain to people what really that feeling is. I'm looking for that feeling, not the fun. Okay. I'm not looking at this as an adventure. I'm looking at this as this has been a passion of mine for 50 years. Plus. And that's the experience I'm looking for.
An extension of your studies.
Yes.
Yes. So seeing it from a different viewpoint.
Absolutely. And also just understanding that relationship of the Earth and space and the atmosphere. It's really important.
It's so vital, and the more people we can get up there, the more of a chance we have of saving our beautiful blue marble.
I mean, Look at it this way. Think of growing up in a large house, but never being outside of your house and seeing what your house looks like from the outside. And imagine you and your whole family living in this big house have never seen your house from the outside. You have a good sense of what it looks like, but then finally getting a chance to go outside your house and seeing what it looks like. That's analogous to what it's going to be like for so many people to go to space and to see our home planet, this ball of geology in space from the outside.
Absolutely. So we are both speaking at the Space Tourism Conference, which is how we met. And your session is monetization of diamonds and dust and space manufacturing and mining. Do you want to touch a little bit on that industry that is emerging? I mean, it is fascinating.
Sure. Yeah. So one of the ways that we can make space exploration sustainable, and another way that we can protect Earth's ecosystem, to channel a little bit of Jeff Bezos here, is to move heavy industry and especially mining and manufacturing off Earth. On the moon and on asteroids, there's nothing to kill. There's no living organisms on the moon or asteroids that we didn't bring there. There's no ecosystem to disrupt. And so we can mine all the rocket fuel. We can mine all of the metals and semiconductors and rare earth elements that we need from the moon and asteroids to have a truly sustainable space economy. If you already had the mining and manufacturing and launch infrastructure set up on the moon, it would actually be more economical to mine the raw materials, build a satellite, launch it into low Earth orbit to send it 99.9% of the way from the moon back to Earth to then be a weather satellite or a communication satellite, than it would be doing the same thing on Earth and launching it just a few hundred miles up, because we can take advantage of the moon's very low gravity and the moon's wealth of resources there. You can literally get all the rocket propellant you need, both the oxygen and say powdered aluminum, which is one of the types of rocket propellant, from any old handful of dirt on the moon. You can melt it. You can run an electric current through it. A lot of people have done the middle school experiment where you run electricity through water and you break it up into hydrogen and oxygen. Well, you can do the same thing with artificial lava. We can melt the rocks and the dirt, called regolith, on the moon. You can run an electric current through it, and you can extract the metals, the oxygen, the semiconductors, the rare earth elements that way through electrochemistry. A lot of the resources that we mine in space will be used in space. It's not totally economical to bring those materials back to Earth yet because of the huge amount of rocket propellant you need to land things on Earth or to launch things from Earth. So a lot of what we're going to be using in mining and manufacturing in space is going to be used in space, and that's less material that we have to mine, manufacture, and launch from Earth. If we do end up using space materials on Earth, it will be to reduce the amount of, say, acid mine drainage from coal mining, or to reduce other harmful impacts on the environment, because we can do those things on other worlds, on the moon and asteroids, again, where there's no indigenous ecosystem to disrupt.
And I really would like to stress, a lot of people, when they hear mining, it does not bring up a lot of positive feelings for the majority of the world. But in the mining that you're going to be doing, you're going to be extracting water from basically dust, and you're going to be creating propellant out of these things. Now, when you can make propellant out of water, what does that do for our fuel technology down here on planet?
Right. So when you can, so the north and south pole of the moon have these craters where the sun doesn't shine. They're permanently shadowed. They're permanently shadowed regions. And we don't yet know how the ice is distributed there. We got to send some scouting missions to go see, like, literally map where the ice is at. But once we do that, we can build machines to go harvest the ice, melt the water, electrolyze it into hydrogen and oxygen. That's some of the most basic and powerful rocket fuel. And we can launch. For us. That's right. And, astronauts can drink it. We can breathe the oxygen. And so imagine your body, as you drink more and more moon water, your body will increasingly be made out of the moon. I think that's kind of a cool thought.
That is cool.
Yeah. So you'll literally become a moon person, or a lunatic.
Or a lunatic, yeah.
Yeah. But to escape from the moon, you've got to get a rocket going 2.5 kilometers per second. Every second going 2.5 kilometers. That's fast, but it's actually, in the whole space scheme of things, it's not that fast. From Earth, That's something more like 9 kilometers per second. We call that delta V. That delta V just means change in velocity. And that is considered the kind of the currency of spaceflight. If you can get a cheaper delta V, well, then everybody wins. You've also got this pesky atmosphere on Earth that you've got to launch through, and that slows down your rocket when you're trying to launch. On the moon, you don't have that. So we can extract rocket propellant, rocket oxidizer. We can launch missions around the solar system from the moon. We can launch supplies back to Earth. We can use the propellant to move ourselves around the moon for this lunar economy. So, and all of that fuel that we mine on the moon is thousands of tons that we don't have to bring from Earth. We won't have to bring as much from Earth, and we'll have a whole lot of wealth in space that we can go take advantage of.
And we can change how we leave Earth too. We can change our rocket fuel to a cleaner fuel once we develop that technology. So it's a very good thing.
It's a win-win all around. Yeah.
Yes.
Hold on to your boosters. We will be right back with Kirby Runyon and Ken Bowdon and talk about space tourism after a brief message from our sponsors. Both of you are space tourists. Virgin Galactic has been selling seats on spaceflight for several years. In fact, I talk about a lot of what he does in my first book, Space Marketing. And I love how he created the program. It's not just about the flight. Right. It's, because the flight was so far off, they created a VIP program, and you get special things that other people would not get. You get the experience. More than just the minute to 3 minute flight. You get so much more. And Ken, you're a ticket holder. You're the first one that I have met. And so that's very exciting. And I've been I've been a Virgin Galactic fan for a long time. So you've got to tell us about your Virgin Galactic experience and as a future Virgin Galactic astronaut.
Sure, I would love to. I'm very, like I said, mentioned before, I'm very passionate about space. And the moment I've been successful in the oil and gas business. I had a great success in 2012. And the day I got a check from selling some of my royalties, I bought a ticket on Virgin Galactic. There wasn't even a choice of what the first thing I was going to do. So that was 2012. And I thought, oh, well, we'll be in space fairly quickly. They've had a few mishaps and such. But it's amazing, even after the major accident, very few people dropped out of the program. The reason for it is because Richard Branson has built a community. He hasn't built a rocket or a spaceship. He's built a community. And I think that's really, that marketing push that he did it's really sort of an internal marketing thing, so that he really, it's all about the hospitality side of things, the events. Let me tell you, Richard Branson knows how to throw an event. I've been to quite a few of the tours out at the Spaceship Factory and the spaceport. We've done the geologic field trip in conjunction with a tour through the spaceport, which was amazing. I did the eclipse back when the eclipse came across back a couple of years ago, and what an event! It was a glamping event out in Wyoming, and it was 5-star tents, giant, 5-star meals. It was a beautiful event. But the great thing about it is you meet all of these people, all of these folks from all over the world. I mean, it's not just folks from the US, it's folks from Germany and France and Japan and all over. And you become to understand that this is sort of a world event, that it's not just a US thing. It's been built in the US, launched from the U.S., but it's a world event. It really is. It's and it has really created a community, and I think that's really why that Virgin experience is everybody's so looking forward to actually making it to space.
Definitely.
About your Virgin Galactic experience, like you've really talked about how it's not just a space tourism one-off thing. You are really in this club of space explorers.
Absolutely.
It's a VIP club, yes. And
really
that's
is.
powerful. A lot of people think that marketing is just about the sale or it's about an irritating advertising on TV. But marketing is really, truly a relationship with your audience. It's
really
everything that you do. And Richard Branson is a genius when it comes to marketing because he knows how important the experience and the relationship is to his customers and his audience. And so he's made it to be, people could have very easily gotten upset, when things didn't fly the first time or the second time or the 30th time. But,
right.
He created something that was worth just as much.
Right. And I'll tell you, I went to the Richard Branson's trip to space at the spaceport. What an event. That was just, it was just mind blowing to watch the spaceship drop. That was close enough to the spaceport where you could see it with the naked eye, where it drops at 50,000, lights up and goes straight up. And the thing that really struck me is that brought home that, hey, this really happened, is that, 12, 14 seconds after the launch, the burn was already, well on its way before the sound reached us. And that when that sound reached us, it just sort of, it was just like, all of a sudden you knew that this was, hey, I'm going to be there. It was exciting.
Did you get a sonic boom when it was coming into land?
We did not. I didn't really hear the sonic boom coming into land. But it was. But the rockets, you could darn sure. Yeah.
I'm not yet a Virgin Galactic ticket holder, but I've seen how Virgin Galactic puts on events. I was leading this group of, I was with Virgin Galactic. We were out in the desert in January of 2022 at White Sands National Park, which they're going to easily see from space. And, White Sands, you're there for the nature. You're not there for any luxurious accommodations. And they have pit toilets there. It's not fancy, but, we and the future astronauts got there, and Virgin Galactic had sent out some caterers to set up this incredible picnic right there on one of the national park picnic tables for us. I mean, it was like pillows and cushions and centerpieces and this incredible food spread that it just made the desert feel luxurious. And it was totally that Richard Branson, Virgin Galactic brand of hospitality and fun. It was, Virgin Galactic knows how to have a good time.
Yes, they do. And he knows how to make everybody else have a good time.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
So Kirby, you are also a space tourism with your parabolic flights. Now, first, let's talk about, I've actually done a podcast with Zero G CEO, Matt Gold. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about what parabolic flights are, and then tell us about your experience.
Sure. So the Zero Gravity Corporation flies a pretty normal Boeing 727 aircraft that used to be in commercial aviation for just flying passengers around. And they converted it, just some minor modifications really, so that it can safely fly in these, what we call parabolic arcs. And for about 20 seconds, it's like gravity turns off inside the airplane as the airplane pitches up and then begins to pitch over. As it goes over the top, it's like flying a roller coaster in the sky, but with a really big track. And for a normal flight, you do that 15 times and you actually get more weightlessness, in aggregate than Ken will get on his Virgin Galactic flight. Not to minimize that, because that's more about the view. But on these zero gravity flights, you get 15 opportunities to get about 20 seconds of weightlessness each time. you can feel this incredible freedom of weightlessness. You haven't experienced bodily physical relaxation until you've completely relaxed every muscle in your body in weightlessness. It is such an incredible sensation, and the freedom to be able to fly, flip upside down. So my
Yes.
story with this was back in 2020, as a NASA-funded researcher, I won my first ever NASA grant proposal to do some impact cratering experiments in zero gravity. And so we built this contraption to study how impact craters fling their what we call ejecta across a simulated planetary or asteroid landscape when the gravity's lower. And so to celebrate winning this grant proposal, which was, I resubmitted it 4 times, it got rejected 3 times, it finally got accepted. And to celebrate, I'm like, man, I've always wanted to do this. And so I just went out to celebrate. I just bought myself a consumer ticket to just be just a regular passenger on this flight as a space tourist. Now, I wasn't going to space, but we use space tourism to refer to any space experience that a tourist might go do on Earth or in space. And so I had such an amazing time. It was literally a lifelong dream come true for me. It was so much fun. I signed up again. I did it again. I brought some friends from work with me that time. And then they asked if I'd be interested in being a zero gravity coach for them to
Awesome.
as an external contractor, helping paying customers have a safe, comfortable, and informed time. And so I've gotten to do that quite a number of times now, making sure that customers are having a good time and enjoying themselves and stay comfortable and safe. And so so I've done that quite a bit. And now I'm really pleased to be in official partnership with the Zero Gravity Corporation, offering what we're calling the Solar System Gravity Tour Experience. Because we don't
Okay.
just do zero gravity, we can also simulate the gravity from Mars and the moon and other large moons in the solar system. And little known fact, the planet Mercury, which is smaller than Mars, actually has the same gravity as Mars. Both Mars and Mercury have 38% the gravity of Earth, and Earth's moon and the other large moons in the solar system have about 15 to 17% the gravity of Earth. And by flying the airplane just a little bit differently, we can give passengers the experience of gravity on those planets. And so if people stay tuned to my website, planex.space, that's PLANEX.SPACE, I'm pretty soon, I'm going to have on my website the advertisement for that solar system gravity tour experience, where the night before we have a luxurious dinner at a country club. We're going to have a half-hour presentation or so on the bleeding edge of planetary exploration around the solar system and how it relates to their flight the next day. Then on that flight, we're going to have a number of parabolas where we experience the gravity of solar system moons. We're going to have astronaut challenges, activities for customers to do as though they were on the moon or Europa or Titan, these other moons in the solar system. And then we're going to have asteroid gravity, which is basically weightlessness. And you can see what it'd be like to explore the surface of an asteroid. And we're going to be taking off from the historic NASA Space Shuttle landing facility at the Kennedy Space Center. So it's going to be this
cool.
very all-inclusive space experience, touring the gravity levels of the solar system. Pretty soon, people will be able to find out more again on my website. We're hoping to do this more often to really make a really visceral connection and an intellectual connection between what people experience on the zero gravity airplane, but also how that connects to modern day planetary exploration. Yeah.
The zero G is within reach. It's not something, a lot of criticism is that space is for the playground for the rich, but zero G it's an expensive ticket but I mean, it's not out of reach.
Right,
they run about $10,000, I
That's
think,
right.
is the going rate.
That's right.
So space is in reach for
and it's less
everybody.
if you go more than once.
You get
Oh,
you
you
get a
get-
frequent
You
flyer
get a
discount. Yeah,
if you
yeah.
go more than once. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So it's something that if it's that important to somebody, middle class, they can save up their money and they can do this. It's on par with a first class transatlantic ticket. And if you can save up your money and do that, then this is within reach to experience. And hopefully as this goes on, eventually the price will come down, hopefully, so that more and more people will get to experience the absolute magic and joy of weightlessness.
Absolutely. And speaking of experiences, and that is a common theme, we have different levels of space tourism. You have the movies and the entertainment that takes us to space within our minds. And then you have the orbiting space tourism, and then you have the strata space tourism, you know, like with the balloons and everything. And you have the parabolic flights, which is in the atmosphere. But you also have something called analogs, which are facilities on the ground that mimic a Mars terrain or a moon terrain, and has activities like science experiments and whatnot to see what it's going to be like in those environments. And I touched base with you the other night to see if you had done one, and why don't you talk about those experiences if either one of you have done those?
Sure. So yeah, Izzy, as you said, so planetary analogs, we're talking about analog in the sense of things on Earth being analogous or an analog to geologic landforms on other planets or moons. Just 2 weeks ago, at the end of January 2023, Ken and I were out in New Mexico looking at two volcanic landforms that he's going to see from space as a Virgin Galactic future astronaut, and B, are analogous to landforms on Mars. They are Mars analogs. One of those Mars analogs that future astronauts, that private astronauts will see from space, is this volcanic crater called Aden Crater. And it's in the middle of this expansive lava flow in southern New Mexico, just north of the US-Mexico border, and just west from El Paso, Texas. And it's this site where a lot of lava erupted. It left this really beautiful crater, what we call a caldera, at the top of this shallow volcano. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a planetary volcanologist at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. And he said that Aden Crater is one of his favorite Mars analogs for showing us what the surfaces of Mars's volcanoes are like. Maybe people are familiar with Olympus Mons. It's the largest volcano in the entire solar system. But there's also some other large volcanoes on Mars as well. And they all have these volcanic craters or calderas at their summits. And Aden Crater, it's only like 100 or 200 yards across. It's not huge, but it's a nice miniature planetary analog to those places on Mars. Also, at the beginning of 2020, right before the pandemic, I was fortunate enough to co-teach a class with Johns Hopkins University geology professor, Dr. Emmy Smith. And we had a number of undergraduate geology majors in Southeast California. We went to Sima Volcanic Field near Baker, California, which is these beautiful volcanoes. If you see them from above, the lava flows look like they're actively dripping downslope. They look really cool. And we did simulated moonwalks through those volcanic fields. All the students had a walkie-talkie. We paired them up, and they had very precisely timed, like 20 minutes or 40 minutes, to do certain geologic tasks on these lava flows as if they were on the moon. And they could communicate with myself or Professor Smith with walkie-talkies, and because we were mission control. And so the idea was to help students understand how astronauts are going to do geology differently in NASA's upcoming Artemis program, and how the Apollo astronauts in the 1960s and 70s did geology on the moon when you're on a very tight timetable. You can't write because you're in a bulky spacesuit. You can't draw on a geologic map. Everything's got to be verbal descriptions, video, and photograph. And so the way that astronauts do geology on the moon, both in the 60s and hopefully coming up in just a couple of years here with Artemis, is fundamentally very different from how an exploration geologist like Ken does it when he's out in the field with a Brunton compass and a hand lens and a geologic map.
Right. And I was going to say something about that time frame, that time schedule. I was fortunate enough to do a Kickstarter, Reboot the Suit, which was the restoration of Neil Armstrong's spacesuit. And so I spent 2 hours with a restoration team at Dulles Airport there at the Air and Space Museum there. And on Neil Armstrong's wrist, on his glove, was the itinerary of what he had to do in the time frame that he had. So when you're in space, that time outside is very valuable, and so it has to be very orchestrated. And I thought that was just, when I saw that, I was like, oh, that is so cool that he had actually had his itinerary of what he was going to do on the moon written on his wrist, so it was right there available.
Yeah, you didn't get this because
Johns Hopkins students do the same thing. They had their exact itinerary and timeline rubber banded to their wrist. So they knew, okay, I've got 5 minutes for this activity, 15 minutes for that activity, and I got to get back to the car or the rover in like 40 minutes. And so we did the same thing because they are on a schedule.
Yes, you can't be late.
Right.
Nope.
You run out of oxygen,
You run
that's
out
a
of
bad
air.
thing. Yep. So
Right.
you can't be late. So let's look into a crystal ball and tell me what you see the space industry in, say, the next 10 years are going to be just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So let's just 10 years from now, where do you see things going to be?
Yeah, thanks. I think 10 years from now, so that puts us in the early 2030s, we're going to have as many people as who want to experience weightlessness be able to afford to save up and go do it, with lots of zero gravity flight experiences. I think suborbital spaceflight will be very common, and not just suborbital, but point-to-point transportation on Earth that's suborbital as well. So if you want to go from Los Angeles to Tokyo, you can do it in less than an hour on a suborbital spaceflight. I think we're going to see that industry start to pick up, hopefully. I hope that we also see an increase in well, my business of training people in the geology of Earth that they can see from space, where they become more literate with regards to Earth as a planet, and people's appreciation of our incredible national parks, our state parks, not just in the US, but in other countries, where, I'll do a little bit of a tangent. Our national parks are underappreciated. They're incredible. They're beautiful. And they connect you to Earth as a planet when you visit them. And they connect you to other planets as well, where there's similar geology there. People who go to Yellowstone don't realize that when they see Old Faithful or Steamboat Geyser erupt, they're seeing something similar to what happens on Jupiter's moon Europa or Saturn's moon Enceladus. And there's incredible connections to the cosmos like that. So I hope that we see a more scientifically literate space tourism. I think there will be more space-themed events on Earth to go to that are informed by real space exploration. So I'm thinking like theme parks and immersive experiences like that.
Absolutely. Ignorance is dangerous to our planet.
Yes.
Yes.
So, Ken, go ahead. What do you see in the next 10 years?
Well, I think the commercialization of space, in terms of just to think, okay, to send an average shuttle up into space was $1 billion a launch. Okay, I mean, and that was considered cheap. The Falcon 9 goes up a couple of orders of magnitude less. I mean, it's amazing. And then when Starship is done, you'll be able to send stuff to space for almost the same price as sending a package from LA to New York. Imagine then what happens of being able to transport materials to space at a cost of sending a package across the world. You talked about mining. I think within the next 10 years, I think we will begin to understand that a single metallic asteroid can provide all the platinum family minerals that we would mine from Earth. All the rare earth minerals that are difficult to find on Earth, cobalt,
or exclusive to a certain area that doesn't want to
or
share.
exclusive to a certain area that doesn't want to share. That it opens up space for industry, and I think you will be in 10 years. We'll see the beginnings of people living in space, working in space on a more permanent basis. Assuming we make it to the moon in the time frame that we're hoping, that'll give several years to begin to construct a moon base. You have to have people living there to construct a moon base. So I think that's really an exciting time that we're in right now. And I look forward to the day that we have space citizens, and we have to worry about, okay, how does that citizenship work? Are you part of the Earth, or are you a citizen of the moon if you live there for a period of time?
Well, and And, as far as space happening, we always put that disclaimer in because we've seen it happen too many times where things kind of start to look hopeful and then, the budget doesn't get passed or something like that. But it is not up to our Congress in the United States anymore whether or not space exists. You've got 80 different countries now with space programs. If we choose to not to participate, this is all still going to happen.
Yes. We have industry. We have individuals that are sending rockets to space, and it's not just governments now. Governments, if the budget changes or priorities change, that program goes away. Hence, we haven't been to the moon in 50 years,
Yes.
But you think anything's going to stop Elon Musk from getting to Mars? I don't think so.
And he's doing some fabulous stuff this year.
Oh, so. I know. It's amazing. So, I think that's the difference we see now is that once industry understands that there's a profit motive, that I think just as ships going across the Atlantic understood there were resources that could be acquired. And I sort of feel like that as a geologist, understanding the catastrophes that have happened to the planet, I think it is important for us to have some of our DNA off planet because it is inevitable that either a supervolcano or an asteroid or something else will happen. It will happen. It's not a matter of
if. It's not if. We just had a near miss. Yeah, we just had a near miss we didn't even know about.
Yeah, it's not if, it's when. And so the quicker we get off planet, the better in my view.
Yeah. Ken, you mentioned something about the privatization and the commercialization. And as a recent academic turned entrepreneur and small business owner myself, I've got that inside passion, but there is that profit motive. Man, that's a motivating factor. I mean, the financial incentivization to explore space and bringing that away from, I want the government to do it too, but I also want the private sector to do it, where that profit motive exists to really innovate. It's that incentivization that really drives innovation and that gives people the freedom to pursue their passions that they would do if they would want to do if they could get paid or not. But getting paid really makes it possible. So
it makes it possible. Yes.
Yeah. So as a new entrepreneur myself, I'm really excited about the possibilities and the freedom that this financial incentive gives people.
We need both. We need the government to do research and things that maybe don't generate the profit, but can stimulate the economy around space. Right. So, and they win by a bigger budget.
Yeah, and I think planetary science is very, very, very important. I've been a member of the Planetary Society for quite a few years, and every year the Planetary Society does a lobbying event for individuals. If somebody wants to be involved with that, it's done every year. Regular people go to Washington D.C. and tell about their passions for space. That's a fun thing. Planetary science, the government definitely has a role in real science, in funding that real science that corporations have not done so much anymore. It's been left to governments to do, and so I think, and that's important. We can't do a lot of the other things without that planetary science.
Absolutely, and we need kids to wake up and every morning and feel juiced about going to school because they're learning how to do stuff with the planets and be, space adventurers.
Yes.
I think that's
not just important for the kids. It's absolutely important for the kids, but it's important for the grown-ups to have jobs that they're excited and juiced to go do as well after they've had that space education.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So what final thoughts do you want to leave our audience with today?
I'd like to just share my passion for sharing the joy of weightlessness and the joy of learning about Earth as a planet and really getting to use Earth to explore planets next door. The national parks are in our backyard. Let's do it. I want to invite people to come to my website, planex.space, and let's go explore it together.
Awesome. Ken?
Yeah, my parting comments are essentially this, is that space is for everyone. We did an event at the spaceship company and talked to the employees, and my wife afterwards says, well, Ken, you can afford a ticket, but they can't. Isn't that sad that they can't afford a ticket? And I said, but they will. By the time they're my age, they'll be able to afford a ticket. Part of the reason a lot of the future astronauts in the suborbital space are going is so that future generations or future folks can then afford to go to space. And I think that's really my parting comment, is that democratization of space is really important.
It is. Competition, it makes things safer, better, and more people experience it. So bring it on.
Bring it on.
Yes, indeed.
So wonderful. And well, Kirby, we will see each other at the space conference, the
Yes,
Space
indeed.
Tourism Conference on April 28th in Los Angeles.
Looking
And
forward to it.
And I am looking forward to meeting you as well. It's a great conference. Ken, I don't know if you are going, but it was so much fun. It was
great.
so much fun.
I may talk to Kirby about it and see about it.
Come on, Ken, it'll be fun.
It was the most amazing experience I had at a conference, and just the synergy with all the other people. It was just amazing. So that's it for today, and
Great.
thank you both so much. Your contact information and some related links will be in the show notes, so please make sure that you check those. And I can't wait to see you. So
thanks so much, Izzy.
Please subscribe before you head on over to my YouTube channel for bonus footage. Links to the YouTube and other social media channels can be found on spacemarketingpodcast.com. A special thanks to Kirby Runyon from Planetary Experience Consulting and Ken Bowdon from Bowdon Energy Corporation for speaking with us today and sharing their experience with their journeys to space. Be sure to check out their links listed in today's show notes. I hope that you have found this podcast useful for your journey as you reach for the stars.